Welcome back. The day a lot of us have been waiting for. Tim Ferriter sentencing hearing.
All rise. Court is back in session. The Honorable Judge Howard Coates presiding.
All right, we are here this afternoon on the sentencing hearing in State versus Ferriter.
So the defense brought a motion for a downward departure. They want to ask for less time than the minimum time. And if you recall, the range was 75 months to 40 years. So the judge says, I need to hear everything first before I make a decision on that.
Just doing it all at one time because I'm not going to decide the downward departure motion until I've heard everything.
The defense called a woman who has a child who suffers from reactive attachment disorder. Basically, defense counsel wanted her to help the court understand what it's like raising and dealing with a child that suffers from RAD. Mind you, she's not an expert witness, and you could see the judge ripped into defense counsel. Like, he was getting so annoyed.
I'm not asking her.
Just ask your question.
Your Honor.
All right.
Well,
if you're asking her to give a psychiatric counsel, please don't interrupt me.
This witness has testified that her own child went to 18 different facilities.
So what? So what?
Then they called a priest who appeared on Zoom to read a statement on Tim's behalf. Then the defense called Tim Ferriter's mother. And here's a bit of what she had to say. And of course, she's a mom. What do you expect her to say, right?
As you know, I'm Maureen, mom of Tim Ferriter. Well, I say don't condone Tim's behavior. That behavior was atypical. I'm imploring you, Judge Coates, to show some mercy on Tim. I'm going to be 74 next month, and I would like to spend some time with Tim before I go.
And then Tim Ferriter spoke. Nothing what I expected it to be. He doesn't look like that broken, shaky man that we saw at the bond hearing. The way the cameras are positioned, like we can't see him face on, but from what we could see, he did not look like the same person. He reminded me of how he looked during trial. I had a feeling that he would provide a statement or speak on his own behalf, but I fully expected him to cry, to be remorseful or pretend to be remorseful, show some empathy, apologize to Ronan for what he's done to him, and, coming to the realization of what Ronan was put through now that he understands what it's like to be locked in a box. But none of that. I didn't hear any remorse. I don't even know what this man was talking about.
From the day I was born in the Marine Corps base in Quantico, Virginia, until this very day, I have had many challenges, but many more blessings. I want to give thanks to God for everything.
And every so often he pulled the microphone away from him because he was crying. But again, we don't see him face on, so who knows if there's really any tears there.
I miss all of them, and I love all of them as I know you do. We would do anything for our kids. Please keep your faith strong and know that as none of this makes sense, we must believe that God has a plan. We know that there must be a bigger reason for all this suffering.
Listen to this guy. He's telling his kids that although none of this makes sense, God has a bigger plan and that there must be a bigger reason for all this suffering. Tim, you are the reason for all this suffering. This man just does not get it. I'm flabbergasted. I really am. Oh, and listen to this. He talks about his first few days in jail, how he was jumped, beaten, multiple people wanted him or threatened that he needs to pay them weekly or there would be consequences.
I want to note that on the first days at the gun club jail, I've been jumped multiple times. I have had my head punched and beat until bleeding. I have been approached and threatened by multiple people that if I don't pay them on a weekly basis, I will face consequences.
And then Ronan spoke on Tim's behalf. Again, we couldn't see him, but we can hear the audio. And this kid was emotional. He's telling Tim that he loves him and, he'll always be his father and that he misses him and he's always thinking about him. And he did talk about what Tim did to him, but he really feels that it didn't come from a bad place. This poor child, he doesn't even understand what this man has done to him. It's so sad.
Some might wonder why I came to see you again. A lot of people do not like what you did to me. Why come back? Well, it's because behind this monster of madness, guilt, anger, and wrongdoing, I see a soft spot. I see what you truly are. I know that hiding in the darkness of fear and blame, there's true fatherly love. In the exact same spot, there's nurturing. I believe that it can still be activated. We just need to excavate the corrupted parts of your heart. I do want to talk about you. That's because I still love you. And I will always love you. Until the end of my days. I just wanted to say that I wish you never did the things you did to me. I feel like everything is slowly taken away from me. But we got to remember that a mistake was made. And trauma lasts. It can burn through people's brains, souls, hearts, and destroying everything in its path. It creates pain. It creates suffering. It creates hate. And Judge Coates, I wish you could sentence my beloved father, Tim, 6 months jail time, 5 years probation.
And then the prosecution read a statement from Ronan's oldest sister. And oh my God, this was a very powerful statement. And I got very emotional listening to it. I'll let you hear some parts of it.
My name is Fiona Ferriter. I am Ronan Ferriter's older sister. I wanted to share the impact of my brother's abuse on him, my sister Nola, and my other brother Pierce. Consider what it is like to have lived in a house where you can hear the screams of your younger brother when he is not in his room. Screams of frustration, hurt, anger, fear, helplessness, and despair. Where you can hear your father yell profanities at him. Where I could hear my father beat him to the point where my brother was no longer screaming, but crying out in pain and barely able to answer questions. When we went out, we all put on the best family faces. We were the perfect Ferriter family. But if you looked closer, you would see the cracks that opened every time the door shut and we were in our own home. Things got worse. They started to keep him in the laundry room with no pants. One time they blocked up the door with boxes so he couldn't get out. My father found him with a cord for charging a phone. When he asked my brother why he had that, my brother told him that he was going to try and hang himself. My father mocked him, asked him, "Did you really think that could hold your weight?" My father may well have laughed in my brother's face. I couldn't stop my father from grabbing my brother by the back of his neck. I couldn't stop my father from lifting my brother up the wall with only one hand on his neck. What if my father had killed my brother? To make matters worse, after Pierce was born, he was moved from his room in the house to a place in the garage. That room stank.
Ronan wanted to kill himself and this man mocked him. Unbelievable. How do you do that? If a child wants to take their life, that's your response? Wow. Ronan's younger sister provided a statement which was read by the prosecution as well. And it's evident that these girls lived in fear. It was very hard to listen to these statements. So here's the judge making his ruling.
I've heard enough. I'm going to go ahead and make a ruling. Ultimately, the state is requesting 15 years, and I think the defense is requesting 1 year. And I do note that I can go all the way up to 40 years. I'm going to downward depart from 75 months to 60 months.
And then I couldn't listen anymore because I didn't care. 60 months? 5 years? When the minimum was 75 months? I'm sorry. I have no words. None. And the judge, in his closing remarks, he made such good points, and I don't know where this comes from. And I am truly shocked. This whole hearing was the complete opposite of what I thought it would be. Anyway, give me your thoughts. Let me know what you think about a 5-year sentence. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. And in the meantime, practice kindness and look out for your fellow beings.